Could Denver Broncos outside linebacker Baron Browning be on track to make his season debut against the Green Bay Packers? And if he does, what are some realistic expectations? Well, we'll dive deep into that and the tail of the tape on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Health is wealth in the NFL, and the Denver Broncos are getting some key players back fully healthy at just the right time ahead of Sunday's matchup against the Green Bay Packers. Welcome into a brand new episode of Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Just want to say thank you so much to everybody in Broncos Country for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day. Every single day you can get this podcast for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. So do us a favor, hit that subscribe or that follow button down below so you never miss out on a day's worth of Broncos news, content, coverage, analysis, and more every single day, all year long. Whether the team is good, whether the team is bad, you know, we're always going to bring the heat and all the action to everybody in Broncos country. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined alongside, as always, by Sayre Bedinger, site expert, predominantlyorange.com. Sayre, look, now obviously this matchup on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, the Packers are coming off of a bye. It gives them a chance to get some guys back healthy this week. But for the Denver Broncos, without the bye, and we know the bye is coming up here, but they're also getting some players back healthy, which is a good sign for them as they progress forward and get near to the second half of the season. And one particular Denver Bronco could be making his season debut for the first time this year against the Packers on Sunday at a position where the Broncos could benefit from another rotational player.
That's right, Cody. And it sounds like from the rumors I'm hearing, maybe some new sack dances prepared for Baron Browning. I know Nick Bonitto was talking about at practice, hey, he might have a little something for the fans, but I'm excited to see Baron Browning. Look, I know we've talked a lot about the edge position lately. Frankly, that's because it's one of those position groups on the team that I feel like maybe the Broncos have something to build on for the future. And Baron Browning being back in the mix, Cody, is huge for this team because he is arguably their most talented guy. And maybe not even arguably. I mean, physically speaking, athletically speaking, he is a freak of nature. I mean, the guy transitioned to the edge last season and just about immediately had success doing so. So we know he's played a little edge before, a little off-ball linebacker, but coming back, I feel like the Broncos, maybe get him on a little bit of a snap count, a little bit of a pitch count out there, but give him some opportunities to go in obvious passing situations. He had 13 third down opportunities against the Kansas City Chiefs. Figure you'll have quite a few of those against Jordan Love and the Packers, especially after what we heard from our guy, Peter Bukowski, on the crossover episode that Jordan Love struggles on second down. So I figure, hey, third down plays, Baron Browning hopefully will be out there, but that's undoubtedly for a 1-5 Broncos team, that's got to be one of the most exciting things about this particular game.
No, 100% too. And look, I think that you have to have a good rotation. I thought, Ronnie Perkins, we're going to give him some flowers. I think he's actually done a solid job in rotation as well. Now, the question I have here, right, if Baron does play here on Sunday, are we going to see Baron and Ronnie Perkins on the field at the same time in that package? Or at this point, because he's listed as a D-end, does this allow maybe Ronnie Perkins to maybe take that D-end spot where Jonathon Harris was? Are we going to see any personnel changes this week? I'm very curious to see how Vance Joseph, Sean Payton maybe embrace maybe some of the moves that they're making here. And I think ideally, too, getting a guy like Baron back, it's exciting, right? We talk about it. But I also feel like we have to probably talk about, okay, hey, Broncos fans, what should your realistic expectations be for Baron Browning? Now, I think in a perfect world, right? Let's say he comes out and gets 2 sacks. That's fantastic. That's best case scenario, right? But I think we also have to put it into perspective. Broncos country, this more than likely will be his first game back in over a year, right? This is his first game action back on the field at full speed. So there might be a little bit of rust, right? And, he gets the chance to shake it off a little bit, but I'm excited to see what Baron can do for Denver. I'm excited to see if they can maybe maneuver some things around, because remember at times under Vic Fangio, there was a time where when Baron was playing, the inside backer position and Denver had Bradley Chubb, and they also had some other guys here. Part of me is also wondering here, do you remember when Jonathan Cooper also played a little bit of defensive end for the Denver Broncos? Denver might be able to slide Cooper in maybe one of their NASCAR packages here. I'm very excited to see maybe all the possibilities there. But, not only will Baron be on track to potentially make his season debut, the return of DJ Jones at nose tackle is more than likely a probability. Now, obviously, he suffered a knee injury in the second quarter of the Broncos' loss against the New York Jets 2 weeks ago, missed the Kansas City game. He was back on the practice field on Wednesday and Thursday, was a full participant. So he and Lloyd Cushenberry are no longer really considered to be in that questionable area here. I think it'll be a big boost because I think against the run, against a team that's got like Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, having a guy like DJ Jones is going to be a useful thing to have here.
It is. I mean, obviously, Aaron Jones been dealing with health issues this year, and AJ Dillon, I kind of feel like he's got one eye or one foot out the door there in Green Bay, so he hasn't been playing very well. So their running game, like this, cannot be the get right game for the Green Bay Packers running game. I mean, the Broncos have been that for so many other teams, and they have struggled quite a bit on Green Bay's side to get things going. We saw back in week 1, Cody, I remember they crushed the Chicago Bears. Like they took them to the cleaners, and it was a healthy Aaron Jones. That was the reason they did that. He hasn't been the same guy for the last, 4 or 5 games for them. So, or I guess 4 games because they had their bye week already. But I do think it's advantageous for the Broncos to have these guys fully healthy, to get Baron Browning back, to get DJ Jones back. You've got a full complement of defensive linemen there for this game. And I think that could be massive as you're talking about needing to win the line of scrimmage against a team that could, in theory, on paper, they could control the clock with those 2 backs, shut those guys down, put the ball in Jordan Love's hands, as we've seen throughout many other opportunities they've had this season, like against the Raiders. You want to put the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo's hand. Against the Commanders, you want it in Sam Howell's hands. That hasn't always worked in Denver's favor, but I think in this case, in this instance, that's exactly what you want to, that's the chance you want to take, right? Is to say, hey, we want Jordan Love to beat us in this game, not Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon.
100% there. And look, we're going to add one more note here too. The Broncos evaluating what they want to do with tight end Greg Dulcich, and IR is another possibility for them, right? And I think a lot of people, and I was talking with Parker Gabriel, Nick Kosmider at practice this week, and I forgot the NFL made a rule. You can now bring guys back off IR twice. Denver hasn't done that yet. And I think last year was the first year that was actually implemented into the NFL policy there. But Denver is evaluating whether or not to put Dulcich on injured reserve. And look, there's a chance maybe he has a season ender, right? Because he's had the same hamstring injury 4 times in the last 2 years to the same hamstring. I don't know. Like, this is just me speculating, but maybe Dulcich looks at a surgical option or something to help him find a solution, because I don't know what's going to happen, what's going to help with this issue he's been dealing with. So we'll continue to monitor that. Obviously, he has not participated in practice this week. He's not going to play this week against the Green Bay Packers. But that's a quick little injury update here on the Broncos side of things here. But Broncos country, we're going to get into the tail of the tape on today's episode of Locked On Broncos. How does the Broncos offense stack up against the Green Bay Packers defense? Some of the important key metrics. Well, we're going to dive deep into that on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode of Locked On Broncos is brought to you by Jace Medical. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared in the event that there are any supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. Well, there's a solution for that, and that's the Jace Case. The Jace Case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. On top of that, you can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace Medical now offers customizability for your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. On top of that, you can buy a gift card for family or your loved ones so that they can get a Jace case of their own. Go to jacemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. Once again, that's promo code LOCKEDON at jacemedical.com. JASE medical.com. And today's episode of Locked On Broncos is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Snap into the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers, they can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So if you go and you sign up today and you place a $5 bet, well, you're going to get $200 back in bonus bets. And you can use that for a wide variety of different things within the app. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now, as the NFL season is in full swing. You've got the NHL season already ongoing, and the NBA season is upcoming. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And on top of that, for the Denver Broncos game this upcoming week, they're actually entering this matchup as 1.5-point underdogs at home with an over-under set at 45. Do you think the under is going to hit? Do you think the over is going to hit? Well, you can get in on the action at FanDuel Sportsbook. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
We're diving into the tail of the tape as talk about the Denver Broncos offense, which has been struggling, going up against a Green Bay defense that I think on paper, Cody, looks like one of the scariest units in the NFL. We're going to break down all the numbers, how the Broncos might stack up against this tough Green Bay defense. But before we do, always love to give a shout out to every single one of you that makes Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. And if you are an everydayer watching us on YouTube or free and available everywhere that you get podcasts, we can't say thank you enough for taking the time to make us part of your day, however you choose to do so. We love and appreciate every single one of you, especially those of you that sound off in the comments and give us feedback on the show. It's super helpful. It's always super encouraging to me, Cody, to get that feedback from people and to just hear that people are enjoying the show or they're resonating with what we're saying. It means a ton. So thank you to all of you that do that. We really appreciate it. And as we break down this matchup, Green Bay Packers defense, against the Denver Broncos offense, Cody, it was a brutal outing against the Kansas City Chiefs the last time out for this Denver offense. Not even 100 yards passing, really no downfield passing game to speak of. You're running the ball pretty well, but ultimately, what is it getting you? It's not gaining you any sort of balance on that side of the ball. Let's break down this matchup between a pretty tough Packers defensive front with some studs there in the secondary as well.
And you talk about that front seven that they have. You talk about the secondary that they have. I mean, they do a lot of good combo coverages, and they amplify that with pressure on the interior, and they maintain edge discipline because their outside linebackers are athletic as can be. And then their inside linebackers are also athletic and flow sideline to sideline. And look, this is going to be, you think you're going to see a lot of too high safety looks this week here, Sayre. And look, this is where the Broncos, the offense has struggled in the last 2 weeks where they've played a too high safety look team. And going back to the Raiders, when the Raiders went too high, Denver couldn't take any shots downfield. Sean Payton didn't against those situations. And so we've seen teams come out in the too high shell, which, look, you're going to see that. That's the common trend of right now what, most NFL defenses run. But if that's prohibiting you from being able to take shots downfield, then, what are you doing? Like, that's why I think we need to see Sean Payton put another foot forward and try to figure out how to rectify that. You have to take shots in the NFL. And with the loss of Dulcich at the tight end position, you have to find a way to not be one-dimensional. You have to take shots downfield, and that's where you got to maybe include Marvin Mims a little bit more going forward here. But let's take a look here. Yards per game. The Broncos offense, they're averaging 306.3 yards per game so far. They've kind of taken a step back in the rankings from where they've been in previous weeks because, hey, the last 2 weeks offensively, they've been a little rough here for Denver here. So 21st in the NFL there, but they're taking on a Packers defense that is allowing over 337.8 yards per game, which is good for 17th right now in the NFL. And we talk about, I think if you go back and watch maybe the Lions game that they, when they had that matchup there, the Lions ran the football really, really well against them. They capitalized in the passing game, but they're balanced though. Like teams that have had success against Green Bay have been balanced in their run and their pass, and Denver has been so pass heavy so far this season without really getting the run game going. So to me, Denver could come out and maybe establish the run here early on, Sayre. I think that Denver's going to have a good chance to maybe spring some things open, but pass protection issues are going to have to get rectified this week. And look, a lot of that, as cliche as it may sound here, Sayre, Denver's going to have to try to put up some points this week. They're going to have to. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's not a negotiable. They need to do it.
Yeah, they do, Cody. They need to be a little more aggressive, I would say, but also a little more methodical at the same time. It's that unfortunate in between that you don't really ever want to be in, where it's like there's nothing that you feel like going into this game and the Broncos can really lean on offensively, whether it be the running game, the passing game, Sean Payton's play calling, a certain player. I think that's the real unfortunate aspect of this, is that there's nothing that going into this Packers game you kind of feel like, okay, yeah, I feel really good about, the Broncos feeding this guy or leaning on this guy or relying on this. They just don't have that right now. It's so unpredictable week to week where this offense is going to get its production from, if it's going to get production. And that's why I feel like obviously Broncos fans are lacking a bit of confidence at this time in the season. So it's going to be crucial for them to establish the run, though. Like you said, Javonte Williams, I thought he looked really fresh against Kansas City. Cody was really explosive between the tackles. Jaleel McLaughlin obviously has been really producing well. So you've got those two guys playing very well. Samaje Perine kind of in a little bit of a funk right now, but that running game, I think, is something that you could lean on and then hit those explosive plays downfield. Get that short, quick passing game going. You had to have learned a lot from that Kansas City game in terms of what's not going to work offensively. You're like what's his name? Thomas Edison trying to find 1,000 different ways to make a light bulb or whatever it is. I'm sure I butchered that, but that's what the Broncos offense feels like right now. It's like they're trying to make the light bulb and they can't do it. So I'm not overly confident about this, Cody, but I feel like they do have ways if they would just stick to something or stick to a certain plan. I think the Broncos offense could get something going against Green Bay, even as tough as they are.
I mean, the biggest thing that we've seen so far this season, right? We were hoping to see it early on, but this team doesn't have an identity on the offensive side of the ball yet, right? They've been very pass happy. And look, I think through the first 4 weeks of the season with Russell Wilson, the passing offense has been pretty good for them, except the last 2 weeks. There's been struggles, but you know what? That's also relative to, and Sean Payton clarified this week. It's not just on Russell Wilson. It's, hey, we got to do a better job of protecting Russ. And this is where I think pressure and the offensive tackle play right now that has become a little bit of a big concern here in the recent weeks here for this Broncos team. I mean, we're talking about nickel rushers coming free, safeties coming free, and getting home on Russell Wilson there, because that right there speaks to me like there's protection issues, but there's also communication issues with that. So let's take a look at sacks. So far of the season, the Broncos have allowed 19 total sacks. Russ has been sacked 19 times. He's been hit a various amount of other times here. What's also crazy is looking at Sam Howell. I feel for that guy. That guy's been sacked 34 times throughout 6 weeks so far, Sayre. Like, that is brutal when you talk about just where a young guy is at. And he's still, making some plays for them in Washington there. But you look at where Green Bay's at, the number of sacks that they have accounted for so far this season, 15 sacks so far for them in 5 weeks. I mean, that's pretty good production. They're balancing that out here. And I think when you look at it, obviously Rashawn Gary leads the way with 4.5 sacks. Obviously, Clark on that D-line, he's got 3 sacks for them so far. So Denver's going to have to find a way to neutralize the pass rush a little bit. And look, I hate to say the quick passing game because, Sayre, that's what the Broncos have been doing, and it's been short and it hasn't been working. So to me, it's run the football, create balance. And if you're gashing them in the run game, okay, then you can open up some play action shots. You can take some shots downfield. But against this secondary, you're going to have to be very, very methodical in the way that you do it. Obviously, Rasul Douglas is on the back end there. They have Jair Alexander. Eric Stokes is also another guy that they have. I mean, they're very talented in what they have. And just a little bit of a note here, former Broncos cornerback coach Greg Williams is over there. He spent time with Vance Joseph in Arizona the last however many years, got a job in Green Bay as their secondary coach this upcoming season. So obviously, shout out to my guy, Coach Williams over there. But yeah, I mean, Sayre, to me, that's my concern here is if the offensive line cannot protect Russell Wilson, you're going to see more hesitancy from Russ. You're going to see a little bit more timidness just because if you're getting hit and pressure, like, do you want to stand in the pocket and maybe take those shots? I wouldn't personally, but that's something that has to get fixed here for Denver. So I'm very curious to see what Sean Payton's game plan is going to be this week.
I am too, because remember a big issue against Kansas City was as they were trying that short passing game, what was happening all the time is George Karlaftis batting down the ball at the line of scrimmage, Chris Jones batting down the ball. I mean, linebackers coming in on a blitz and knocking the ball down. And those types of things, that's what happens when I think with Russell Wilson, you try to keep him in the pocket and get a short passing game going. If your offensive line is allowing that pressure, those guys are getting right up in his face. And if he's got a low trajectory with the football, those balls are going to be batted down. That's where his height can be a kind of a disadvantage, Cody. So you want to see Russ getting outside the pocket and making those plays, but is he trying to do that too quickly in the progression right now? Does he have a little bit more time, a tick more time to be able to stay in there and get the trajectory a little up on the ball? And I know I'm not trying to overcomplicate it or anything, Cody, but I think it's kind of just a simple, like, hey, he's a little short. They're trying a short passing game and the ball is staying low. And he's trying to throw it quick. He's trying to put it on a line right in front of him. And these guys are just able to stick their hands up and knock these passing plays down. So maybe there is something to the idea of trying a little bit longer developing passing plays. Get those. We haven't seen any one of those deep in routes from Jerry Jeudy. Remember that were working so well for him. the last couple of years. Haven't seen any of those. We rarely ever see Courtland Sutton getting balls thrown deep downfield, and they've been successful this year when they have tried that. The back shoulder against Kansas City, it worked. The fade in the red zone against Kansas City, it worked. Courtland Sutton maybe getting more opportunities on deeper balls downfield, as well as Marvin Mims, but I think that can be ultimately something the Broncos that they have success with.
Couldn't have said it any better myself, my friend. I mean, that's what Denver needs to do. And as you mentioned, the whole Courtland Sutton thing, I'm like, yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that. Hey, on the outside, throw the 9 ball. Like, let Courtland go do his thing, what he's made a living off of here in the NFL. So I'll be very curious to see how that happens, especially if they have Rasul Douglas lurking on the back end, and then you have Jair playing underneath there. That's going to be a very, very interesting matchup and challenge here for this Broncos offense here. But we're going to also take a look at the tail of the tape, the Broncos defense against Jordan Love and the Packers offense, some of the key metrics we have our eyes on. You're going to get all that in today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode, Locked On Broncos, is brought to you by our friends over there, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports done right, and it's the largest independently owned DFS platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including the pros and the sharks, well, you pick more than or you pick less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the most fun that I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their stats that are projected, and then you place your entry. And on top of that, they have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And on top of that, they also offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Get in on the action over there at prizepicks.com by going to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. And the show is also brought to you by our good friends over there at DoorDash. Why root for your team on an empty stomach? Order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. Order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. Or you can order chips, dips, nachos, and everything you need to make your own nachos on DoorDash and get it all delivered in this time frame without having to miss a game. You can get all that action at DoorDash. So kick back at kickoff with unbeatable deals on everything that you need for the watch party or your tailgate. Score football season's best deals on groceries, restaurants, retail, and more. All of your favorite restaurants and stores from retail to grocery are on the app, so you can shop everything you need to get game day ready. Now, for me personally here in Denver, I love Illegal Pete's, so I have Illegal Pete's come my way through DoorDash. They also, a big favorite of mine, Five Guys. They also deliver that through the DoorDash app. So get prepared before game day, stock up on favorite appetizers, and order all your tailgate gear on DoorDash. Then get ready to watch your team win. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and you enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Once again, subject to change, terms apply. As we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode of the show, looking at the tail of the tape, we just want to say thank you so much to everybody in Broncos Country for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day every single day. Wherever you get your podcasts are available on YouTube for free. We appreciate you so much for rocking with us here. Broncos Country, very excited about this weekend's game. Sayre's coming to town for the game. So if you see Sayre at Empire Field at Mile High, make sure you say hi to him. If you see me, make sure you say hi to me. But looking forward to catching up with my guy in person this week here ahead of the game here. But Sayre, let's take a look here at the Broncos defense against Jordan Love and this Packers offense. And obviously in the crossovers you were talking with Peter Bukowski, the Packers offense has been a struggling point for them this season. I think when you look at some of the metrics, it's been very unorthodox for a Matt LaFleur style of offense, right? And I think people are going to say, well, that's what happens when you lose Aaron Rodgers. Well, even with Aaron Rodgers last season, they struggled. They weren't efficient. So you look at maybe some of the factors, offensive line being one of them, obviously some changing of the guard. Now you have a young quarterback who, has some tools, can get into rhythm, can get hot, but is inconsistent still. So I look at this and you look at yards per game for the Broncos defense. I think that Miami game is going to forever ruin maybe these statistical rankings here. And obviously Denver has given up a lot of yards in a lot of games, not just the Miami game, but that one made it very difficult. Denver right now, bottom ranked, allowing over 440.3 yards per game, though this past week, 389 to the Kansas City Chiefs and only one touchdown allowed. I think you'll take that ultimately, but the Green Bay Packers offense struggling themselves, only averaging 281.6 yards per game. Good right now for 28th in the NFL, and they themselves don't have a lot of balance between the run and the pass there in Green Bay.
They don't. I mean, it's like I said, I mean, it's been tough sledding for Aaron Jones this year with the injuries, and then AJ Dillon, he does not look like you would assume a guy like him, a second round pick who's in a contract year, you would assume that, I mean, he's going to be out there absolutely killing this opportunity with Aaron Jones being injured, but he's not been. I mean, he has been, like I said, it kind of feels like 1 foot out the door, and that has caused the Packers to have this very stark lack of balance in their offense. Cody, as you mentioned, Jordan Love, but they're trusting Jordan Love, as we heard from Peter Bukowski. They are trusting Jordan Love a lot, and I think rightfully so, because you want to get as honest of an evaluation on this guy as possible. As much as the Packers feel like they could probably compete for a wild card spot with Detroit now at 5-1, and I believe they can. I believe they have a team that's good enough to do that. They also need to go into the season thinking, hey, our record does not matter. We need to find out this year if Jordan Love is the guy. And from the sounds of things, they are very encouraged by what they're seeing, even with some of the ups and downs. So I don't know that they're necessarily concerned about that balance, although the development, right? I mean, what a novel concept. And the Packers are very, very good at this. Go figure. They've drafted almost their entire roster. It's one of the, if you look, Broncos fans, go look at Green Bay's roster and what they have done in the last 5-6 years. I know Brian Gutekunst has come under a lot of fire, but it could be encouraging for Broncos fans to see, even if you make a lot of unpopular decisions, they have built a talented roster over there in Green Bay. And offensively, they've got weapons. I know they're only averaging 281.6 yards per game, averaging 22.6 points per game, kind of right where you want to be, that 23 points a game range where you can be in just about every game. Their young playmakers are very, very intriguing to me, Cody. Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Luke Musgrave, a guy we talked about on the show leading up to the draft, and then obviously their running backs. So Jordan Love has guys, but it just kind of feels like week to week, is this going to be a week where they explode and look awesome, or is it going to be a week where they all look like young guys in the NFL? The Broncos defense needs to make them look like young guys in Denver this weekend.
Well, and the crazy thing about it too is, Christian Watson's missed some time for them this year due to injury, but man, he's so explosive. He had big play against the Las Vegas Raiders in their last game. I mean, he's a talented player. I imagine we'll see Surtain matched up against him quite a bit here. You look at Romeo Doubs, who's obviously leading the way for them, receiving 228 yards. You got Reed on the back end also at 210 yards. But I think in terms of rushing yards, what's interesting to me, seeing it, A.J. Dillon obviously leading the way with 194, Aaron Jones 59, obviously missing some games to injuries will impact that. But Jordan Love also has the ability to scramble outside. He's their second leading rusher at 109 yards here. So Denver's going to have to make sure they have that contain alleys locked in and secured this week here against the Green Bay Packers. Some other notes as well. When we take a look at the Broncos deal, allowing 33.3 points per game, bottom ranked in the NFL. Now it's a better jump than what they were 2 weeks ago when we were doing the tell of the tape, because once again, that one game against the Miami Dolphins really skewed the sample size here. But obviously, after holding the Kansas City Chiefs to just 18 points or 19 points this past week, it's a promising sign in the right direction. A lot of players had said that Vance Joseph simplified some of the calls for them, and that's why defensively they've been playing better. And look, those guys got confidence right now. I was talking with Josie Jewell this week in the locker room. He says, we feel like we're in a good rhythm right now. We're getting some guys back healthy, and we just need to continue to build on what we've been able to do and clean some things up. But they feel like they're trending in the right direction here. So that's a good sign there. The Packers offense, they're averaging 22.6 points per game, which, you look at that right now. If Denver can't score points, if Green Bay hits that output, they're sitting comfortable in this matchup. So this is where Denver really needs to step up, because if the defense, as they did last week, holds Green Bay to minimal opportunities on third down, force them to settle for field goals, the offense needs to go down and they need to score points. And I mean, that's the thing here, that you got to help the defense out, and you got to find it, as Javonte Williams said earlier this week, you got to find balance. Like, it can't just be the offense being good one game, the defense struggling, and then switching it up. Like, this needs to be a game where the Broncos come together and have a complete overall performance. And I think a lot of that's going to be protecting the football. And for Denver's defense, I think against Jordan Love and this struggling Packers offense, they're going to have to find a way to get takeaways. Denver's got 6 total takeaways on the season so far. Defensively, Kareem Jackson has 2 interceptions. Justin Simmons has 1. Patrick Surtain has 1. And then Denver obviously has a couple of fumble recoveries here that we've seen. The Packers, they've only turned the ball over 6 times this season, which is pretty good. It's top ranked in the NFL in terms of 7th overall. So they do a really good job of not putting the football into harm's way often, and to the extent some other teams do around the NFL. So I think really the key here, Sayre, defensively, going to have to fluster Jordan Love, take advantage, and you have to get takeaways. Like Denver's defense has to find a way to do just that, and the offense has to go down and put up points. They can't just stall out. And look, to me, I think that's going to be the biggest question I have for this game on Sunday. Can Denver's offense find a way to get back to things that were working and maybe build on that? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, right. I feel the same exact way, Cody. I mean, the jury is still out on this defense, right? Other than, I mean, we've just declared them arguably the worst in franchise history earlier this season when you give up 70 to the Dolphins. And even if you do take out that 70, Cody, I was looking, the Broncos still averaging 26 points allowed per game. So, I mean, it's not like it's been great. They have had 2 outings, like against the Raiders, you gave up 17. Against the Chiefs, you gave up 19, but also those were both losses for the team. So obviously didn't do quite enough there. And you look at, like you said, a key to this game, and I think this is a broken record from my vantage point, because I feel like I talk about this every week, but it's so important, and you see it over the course of a game. Getting pressure on Jordan Love is so critical. And just looking at time to throw across the NFL, we know Russell Wilson ranks number 1 in that category at 3.07 seconds per dropback. Jordan Love is pretty high on the list, but also close to the middle. I mean, 2.83, which is not far off of, the higher guys in the league. But Cody, 2.83 seconds, he's going to hold on to the ball quite a bit. I mean, and he doesn't complete a high percentage of passes. 55.6% of his passes right now are being completed. And I think that's due to young receivers, a little bit. I think it's due to the fact that he's kind of a gunslinger out there and he's willing to try to fit the ball into spots. That's where exactly what you said comes into play. Packers haven't turned the ball over a ton, but maybe there's a little bit of a margin there for the Broncos to create those turnovers with him having a little more time he takes a little more time to throw, and he's willing to throw the ball, into harm's way a little bit, because that's just a style of play that he has. That's something the Broncos defense can take advantage of in this game. And I would love to see them do that, especially with a full complement of those young pass rushers out there. Let those guys eat. Let those guys cook. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, you need those guys to be creating opportunities on the inside for those guys off the edge, as well as doing their own thing and creating pressure as well. So this could be a game against a young Packers O-line. We haven't touched on that a ton. We need the Broncos defensive front to go out there and play like they have a huge advantage, because against a young offensive line that's kind of struggling a little bit, I think they do.
Yeah, no, the pressure's on them going forward here, and we'll have to see where Denver maybe adjusts, and we'll see if there's any personnel changes come Sunday in terms of the starting lineup on defense. Maybe changing some things up, building some continuity going forward will be important for this team here. But Broncos Country, thank you so much for rocking with us on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. The next time we'll see, it'll be after Sunday's game against the Green Bay Packers. Sayre, Bedinger, myself will break down all the action in our Locked On Broncos post-game report. We appreciate you so much, Broncos Country. We'll see you then.